Welcome to the Tennis.com podcast. I'm your host, as always, Nina Pantic, joined with Irina Falcone. Irina, hi.
Hey guys, how's it going?
And our special guest for this episode is Penny Lerner, the CEO of AYS Sports Marketing and the founder and originator of Citi Taste of Tennis events that happen all around the world. Penny, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Penny, we love to ask everyone where in the world they are during this kind of crazy shutdown quarantine period. So tell us where you are and what you've been up to, I guess, since the Indian Wells shutdown.
Yeah, I mean, that's a loaded question, right? Where I am, I'm in Philadelphia. That's where we're based. So my kids have actually moved down to the beach in Margate. We decided a month and a half ago to move down to South Jersey, but I'm staying in the city, and that is where we are. And I'm wherever my computer is, to be honest. I carry the computer around, and that is where I become. Yeah. So
how come you didn't go to the beach with them?
I do. I go in between because nobody comes in since actually Indian Wells. So since March 9th, when we had to, March 8th at 8:00, when we kind of canceled our event, I sent my staff home the very next day, and nobody's come back to the office. So for me, it's been an actual place that I can come to throughout the quarantine, even when we were, all in our house. It's very close to my house. So I was able to walk here and have a space that I can think and, kind of think about what the next steps are and how do we go from where we were to what we're going to be. And I was able to plan and strategize and have a place outside of my home with 3 children learning from home and a husband. I was able to come here and do that.
So much has been made about tournaments and the players and what everyone is doing and how they're dealing with everything, but not much has been mentioned about things like tournament directors and events and sponsors. And your event in particular, the Taste of Tennis, happens at, I think, 5 stops now on the tour. Melbourne added this year, Indian Wells, Miami, DC, New York. So
and Wimbledon, by the way, we had Wimbledon in the books for this year, which we can't.
Okay, so I mean, this was going to be an expansion year for you. So take us through how your reaction was, I guess, Indian Wells when this first happened, and how things have changed for you since. Because, I mean, there could be a DC tournament, but that doesn't mean there'll be a party.
That's correct. Again, I think we had a little bit of advance with going to Australia, being there, hearing about what was happening there, fighting the bushfires, trying to figure out what to do about that. And then when we came to the States, we actually ran a Citi Taste of Tennis on March 7th with Maria Sharapova, John McEnroe, Michael Chang, Amanda Anisimova in LA. And then I drove out right after that, right to Indian Wells. And the next day, we realized it was too dangerous, too scary, and not worth the risk for my employees, the players, people that come, our sponsors. So we kind of shut it down and immediately started to rethink what does this look like? Mind you, at the same time, the entire live events industry shut down, right? We shut down on the 8th, right, along with BNP Paribas Open. By the time I got back to Philadelphia, the NBA had shut down. Tom Hanks had announced he had COVID. Like, that flight back was, the world changed while I was in air, literally. I mean, we saw it, we knew it, but it changed right before our eyes. I mean, and so again, we just had to kind of sit down and say, okay, what do we do, right? Our friends and our community are struggling, like not only in live events, but our chefs were, being annihilated. They were out of business. They were out of work. They had employees that they couldn't handle. They had payroll that they couldn't handle. They were sad. Like, people just immediately were sad. Our tennis players, they kind of went home and were like, okay, let's just go home and figure it out. Like, everybody was kind of in shock. Like, what is home? Do we go to Saddlebrook? Do we go back to Croatia? Like, what are we doing? That was the big thing in tennis. But at the same time, in the chef world that we also live in, it was getting crushed. And our live events was getting, annihilated, and hotels were in huge question marks. And I think, we had to sit down and think, like, okay, what can we do to help, right? How can we solidify ourselves as a company and as a brand with the Citi Taste of Tennis? And how can we help all the people that have been so helpful to us over the years? You know, how do we stay in business? That's number one, right? And then how do we rise with the community? How do we show our diverse platform and, you know, be able to continue the conversation? And that's what we started to do. And that's how we developed the What's in Your Kitchen. It started as, you know, okay, let's create this hashtag because our chefs, we need to showcase and use our platform to showcase their restaurants that they're now doing takeout, or, you know, whatever innovation they were doing or how they were helping their community. We wanted to get them involved with the hashtag What's in Your Kitchen. And we thought we would get our fans and, you know, engage people involved to like talk about what they're doing in their kitchen, because we all became home chefs overnight. And then we started to get, like, which I thought was really inspiring, the players started reaching out and say, hey, we're cooking too, you know, and we have really cool, like, we're in Russia and we have really cool Russian cuisine we want to share with people. And we're in Australia and I'm making really cool cocktails at home with my husband and I want to show that. And, you know, Sophia Kennan was like, I'm cooking a lot with my mom, so I want to show my mom. And, you know, Mike Bryan was like, Nadia is about to have a baby. We're not going to be able to maybe cook that much. Let's cook while she's 9.5 months, you know? And so we were able to kind of create this really fun place that was a bit of normalcy, you know? Like, I think we did something with Bob Bryan and Michelle Bryan, and she made like a tortilla, which, you know, is, you know, part of her culture. And when she went to flip the pan over, half the tortilla didn't make the pan, and it just like went right on the floor, you know. But those are moments, like, they're funny, and we were all having them, like, in the midst of this horrible situation. We found ourselves at home, particularly tennis players, because they travel all the time. They found themselves at home cooking and engaging and laughing with their family and doing things that they just would have never done, which I think is what the Citi Taste of Tennis did anyway. We brought an opportunity where you can do different things as opposed to just going to a tournament, practicing, eating, playing, losing, leaving. We kind of brought that, hey, there's actually something else here. You know, there's another side to the world that you guys may or may not be experiencing. And I think that's what we did with What's in Your Kitchen.
You've really ingrained yourself into the community. I think that you're a part of it, and it really goes to show how ingrained you are, because players are continuing to work with you and show up for you, and then you for them. And also, there's nothing on Instagram that I will not try and cook or bake. Just want to say that.
Right, exactly. Right? People try it. I mean, and you get fun, again, it's just the funny moments that happen in life, because some of the players can cook and some have no idea what they're doing, right? But then you meet like a Dennis Kudla, who I didn't really know before. I knew him, but I didn't know him. And he's like a professional cocktail mixologist. You know, he's really good. Like, you get to see, okay, I see you. Like, and now I know, like, there's real talent on the tour on the culinary side.
I love that you've been able to bring, you know, so many different ways of seeing tennis players. There's not just tennis. And I personally love all things food, and I'm a tennis player too. So I am just all about your channel and Citi Taste of Tennis. I know that me and Nina have had experiences. We've attended some events, and I just want to know, like, how did the idea come about of your, like, why don't we mix food and tennis together?
So if you can imagine, like 20 years ago, right, when you girls were babies, right, and we, you know, when we started AYS 25 years ago, we were working a lot with like the NBA. I work with the National Basketball Players Association, and I ran their meetings in Puerto Rico, and I did events for them throughout the United States. I used to do All-Star Weekend, and I would work with ESPN, and I would do, you know, Super Bowl, where we worked with Snoop and Ludacris and all these, you know, incredible talent at that time, and still incredible talent. And we started to realize, like, our passion, like the Lerner passion, me and my mom, we love tennis. And we were like, well, wait a minute, why doesn't this stuff exist in tennis? Like, at that time, it was like literally you came in, I think 85% of the meals were eaten in hotel rooms. Players never left their room. They stayed in the tournament hotel. They ate the food that was given to them. They went to sleep, they woke up, and they did the same thing the very next day. They would rarely venture out. And we thought it's so cool, and, you know, and basketball and football and this whole other side of the world that we don't have in tennis. And so we thought, maybe this is a niche. Let's kind of put this together. We had a lot of friends that were chefs and that liked tennis. And we thought, you know what, let's put it together. And then we had, you know, our first couple, Andre Agassi was like, I like that idea. I'll show up for you. And having that relationship with, you know, at that point, and he still is, you know, just an amazing person, right? So he shows up. And then we have Emerald Lagasse, who was basically the chef at that time. He shows up, and you have Andre and Emerald together, and people are like, what is happening? And you're like, I see it. There's a magic in this. Like, tennis players are going to be everywhere, and chefs are, you know, international, and they're everywhere too. In tennis, we need to eat, and chefs, they need to work out, and a lot of them play tennis, and we put it together, and now we're 20 years later. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. You're listening to the Tennis.com podcast with special guest Penny Lerner. She's sharing how the tennis community is rallying behind her small business during this tough time. Keep listening. But why tennis? Was tennis something that you were interested in when you were younger, or something you played? I mean, I know you love the maybe watching, but why specifically tennis? What drew you in?
So my mom, Judy, my partner, she's been in tennis since I was a kid. You know, I grew up with like Mark Woodford staying at the house, like doubles players, you know, way back 35 years ago. They didn't get housing. You know, they would have, when we had the Ebel US Pro Indoor in Philadelphia, they would have to stay at houses. And so we would have these athletes stay at our house. And I didn't really play tennis, but my parents played tennis all the time. And I just, you know, I got to know the community, and they were nice to me when I was younger. And tennis was a good sport for my mom, and it gave her a career in the early days when women were just starting to work, you know. And I got to see her like going from a non-working mother to like almost running a tournament here. She was right underneath Marilyn Fernberger and kind of ran that tournament. And then she went, and, you know, they hired her at Wimbledon, and then she was running the US Open, and then she was at, you know, the Sony Ericsson at the time, the Miami Open. And tennis was welcoming of this woman who loved the sport. And for me, I just love that people gave her an opportunity, you know, as a woman to start and work and actually do a really good job. And she was really respected. And so I think when I got out of college and she's like, I think I'm going to do something, I was like, I'll help you do that. I'll help you become who you should be and who we can be together. And we just started it like that. And tennis was always in our hearts. You know, we did work, and we still do. We've worked with Allen Iverson. We've worked with incredible athletes along the way.
You've had so many big names. I mean, you mentioned Agassi there, but you've had so many big names show up to your events. I know in New York, Venus and Serena are like the biggest draws, and the crowd goes crazy, and they show up for you. And you also have John Isner as the ambassador. I mean, Isner, we're a big fan of Isner ever since Irina called him a tree. When we were teenagers at a Kentucky Challenger, we've been big fans. So how does one become an ambassador for Taste of Tennis? And let's just assume COVID is out of the picture. Were you looking to add more ambassadors? Is Isner the main man because of the connection to Citi? How does that become a thing?
So, well, what we wanted to do, because when a lot of people hear about, oh, it's the Citi Taste of Tennis, sometimes they think, oh, it's just a 4-hour event, you know? And what we wanted to do, and what I think John really understood, is we wanted to create, like, it's not just a 4-hour event, actually. It's, you know, it was the patch deal. It was conversation on the internet. It was going through these different cities. Like, we might only have events in these areas, but we were everywhere, you know, because food is everywhere and culture is everywhere, and diversity, specifically on the tennis tour, is everywhere. And you have to be very accustomed to different places, different cultures, a different way of life. And so we thought that, you know, John could, you know, in our message, help us get that message across. And we did. I mean, we do now. We have, you know, we're working with Mike and Bob Bryan that we've, you know, I've spent many years with them as our ambassadors. And we had a lot of ideas for how to grow that platform. And so now, not to go back to Evan King, but I'm really looking, you know, the pace of the world, I'm really trying to use the Citi Taste of Tennis to showcase the other side of tennis, that it's not all about, the 50 top. There is this whole world of intellectual, incredible human beings that struggle to get to where they have to go. And I'm trying to give them a voice in this voiceless community right now. And, that's where kind of Evan comes in, and Nathan, and really smart, great guys that, that can be our ambassadors in a different way. It's a different form. And that's what the digital world has given to us, that it doesn't just have to be a patch deal. There are so many ways now that we can explore these relationships and help grow communities within our own industry. That's what we're hoping to do.
Have you found it difficult to maintain, relationships with all these different players? You've been in the game for a very long time. So I'm just curious if it's one of those things where most players are just like, all right, I'm attending an event, that's it, kind of like have a nice life, or do you maintain relationships, lifelong relationships?
We maintain lifelong relationships. Because we're not one of those big giants, and we're not agents, and we're not pretending. We are who we are, and we ask and we deliver. And I think that that's valued by the players that support us. I think it's valued by the agents that support us, or the wives or the husbands, whoever's the one supporting us to get the player there, whether it's the player itself. And I think we put together moments where people actually enjoy themselves, and not just tennis players, right? But coaches, like tennis media, everything that goes behind our sport. They get to take a couple hours and say, hey, how are you doing? Outside of that, how are you doing? What'd you do? And, that quick pace that tennis lives in. This gives them a little bit of that breather to be able to enjoy it for a night, right?
It's always, how are you doing? Who did you play? What was the score? When do you play next?
Right. And so, it's tricky, because tennis is getting younger. And so when you have even Coco Gauff, right? Like, she came to our 20th anniversary of the Citi Taste of Tennis in New York, and she's young, and she went on the carpet, and it was her first carpet. And she was like, whoa, like, you forget that she's so young because she talks, she's so mature and sophisticated, and you have to it's very different. I specifically remember in our, at the Taste, when she walked in, we had to take her out and bring her in the back. And literally in the room, I had Mike Tyson, Serena Williams, Venus walking in, and Coco Gauff, and Morimoto, and Druni Paran, and Michelle Nishan, all within, I could literally touch them if I had a racket. I could touch each of them right next to me. And I was thinking, wow, this is a big moment.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what to do, right? Because, people weren't around me, and I needed to maintain, and, and I was like, this is a moment. This is what the Taste does. It brings people of all different cultures together to celebrate, tennis and food and the cities that we're in. And it's just cool to be a part of. That was probably one of my coolest moments ever in my life.
It doesn't seem like you have to actually try very hard to get these players to do it and the chefs to do it. It seems like they genuinely want to do it, and that's amazing.
Yeah, it feels like they generally want to do it. It's a lot of talking back and forth. Yeah, it's a lot of convincing. But, we put the opportunity. Even today, I got an email from an agent in Croatia, and I had spoke to him, a couple weeks ago, and he's like, yeah, no, I don't know. And then the what's in your kitchen sits with him. And then he emails me back. He's like, you know what? Let's do it. Because people want to be part of something that's easy and feels good and is positive, especially in today's world. People want positive reinforcement, and they want, whether you're a player, an agent, a coach, a tournament director, you want to do something, you want to feel good for a minute, right? Before everything else happens, I think.
Hey guys, today we have special guest Penny Lerner telling us what it's like to have Serena come to your event. Keep listening.
I was going to ask you if you've ever felt starstruck. It sounds like maybe that was your moment where you were like, whoa.
No, that was not the whoa moment. That was a oh my God moment. Like I've got so much to do. Like how am I going to get it done? Because my staff isn't next to me, you know, and my title sponsor staring at me. I think there was one moment. I don't know if it was Starstruck. It's hard because I've been in sports for so long and I've become accustomed to some of the things that happen. I know, like, per se, Omar Benson Miller is, you know, an acclaimed actor, and he's been, since 8 Mile, I've been watching him, and I loved him in, you know, my CSI Miami, and then I loved him even more in Ballers, you know, and then I saw that he was doing things at the Tennis Channel, and then, like, I got to meet him, and I think that was a moment where I was like, he's an actor, you know, and he's like, you know, oh my God, we're like, I'm meeting Charles.
He's talking to me. Yeah.
He's talking to me, and he's like, and now, you know, fast forward it, you know, 4 years, you know, we're friends. Like we hang out and we've had dinner and we've seen each other in Miami, and, you know, it's just, that's how it goes. Right. But I think my most overwhelming moment was a couple of years ago when Serena was getting a lot of attention before she got to 23. And she came in, I'll never forget this, when we were at the W, she came into the hotel, and I remember Simona Halep was like waiting by the carpet to go on it. And the rush of, like, the overwhelming feeling of the rush of media on top of Serena, because Venus was also on the carpet. So when the two of them got on the carpet, I felt like I was like crushed, you know? And then I remember Jill said to me, you know, Jill, her agent, she's like, what do you want Serena to do? And I was like, leave. She needs to leave because I don't know what to do in this moment. And that was probably one of, like, the most overwhelmed, or if you want to call it starstruck, like I was not prepared for that much attention. And I've seen a lot of attention in my life, but that was by far the biggest moment that I think I professionally had to handle and, like, take care of her and make sure that she was safe, you know, and, you know, was able to, like, walk. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's what Serena brings, though. That's what, I mean, that comes with the territory.
Yeah, but, you know, I've been working with her for 10 years before that. This, you know, before she got, and she made 23 that year, that was the year. But before that year, it was never like that. It was never, but all the attention was on her, and it shifted. I mean, she's a big personality, so she, you know, she commands respect and attention. That's always happened with her. But this, I never, and then it never went back. It's always that when she's in the room, the cameras are, you know, everybody's ready for her because she's the greatest athlete in the world, right? Pretty cool to have the greatest athlete in the world in tennis.
And at your events. Very cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I really hope that the events come back in full force, maybe, you know, 2021, 2022, after there's a vaccine, because they're so much fun and they mean so much to the chefs, the players. Even as someone that's covered it, like, I've had so many funny moments and memories from there, like interviewing Venus Williams that one year, and then Gaël Monfils dancing and, like, taking over the dance floor. I mean, there's so many moments, and of course the food. Like, I still think about this. It was like a fish tuna taco. I still think about it. So you've left an impact, you know, and I'm hoping that you have a chance to do a lot more, and I'm hoping expand even further, you know, like if we can just get through this hard time, which it sounds like you are.
We'll see, right? That's the new term. We'll see where we go, as long as, you know, we keep being supported and Congress keeps doing what they need to do and support, you know, small businesses and help us get through this mayhem. And, you know, and that players, I think it's important that players realize that, you know, the top 50 players, that they're in a position to help companies like ours. I think something else is, you know, in tennis, when this happened, you know, the big guys got together. You know, you heard the ATP, the WTA, the USTA, you know, the IDL, all these big companies got together, but nobody talked to anybody that keeps the ball rolling. Nobody looked at the small businesses that help, you know, amplify the message of these large institutions. And I think, you know, I mean, I immediately reached out to Cliff Drysdale, World Team Tennis, you know, Tiebreak Tens. And I was like, let's do this together. Like, we've got to create cohesiveness. Because without all of us in one, rubber band, we're going to break. Can't do it on our own because there's not enough sponsorship dollars. There's not enough players. There's not enough interests, and all the big guys are taking care of themselves and they're not taking care of us. And that was that helped. And I hope that, as we continue, the players realize what position they're in, especially the top guys that have made a lot of money and are willing to do a little bit of sacrifice for companies like mine, and help us stay in business. Like Venus going 3 weeks to World Team Tennis, that's great, right? Because it helps them grow their brand. The players coming on my live, Evan King doing my new weekly series, it's all great, whether it's an Evan King or a Venus Williams, that's their job now, is to help us survive. So when we get through this, we're an even stronger community, because there's a lot of tension right now in tennis. Yeah.
Oh, there is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time. This has been super exciting to talk to you and learn all about your journey and all about Citi Taste of Tennis. So thank you so much for taking the time, and we look forward to hopefully eating some food with you in the near future.
I hope so. Thank you. It was great. Thank you so much.
From the Tennis Channel Podcast Network, this has been the Tennis.com podcast. Be sure to subscribe to stay caught up. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every major listening app, as well as tennis.com/podcasts. You can also see the videos of our episodes on Tennis Channel's YouTube page and tennis.com's Facebook page. We're your hosts, Nina Pantic and Irina Falcone. We'd like to thank our team, editor and audio designer and video editor Christina Koseva, producers Alexa March and Sean O'Malley, and executive producers Shelby Coleman, Kyle Einhorn, and Andy Chu.